Welcome to my channel. My name's Duff, and it's not without some trepidation that I take to social media to place an open call for integrity in pastoral social media use. Many of my Facebook and Twitter friends, those of you who follow me on my blog, Naturalis Historia, and subscribe here to my YouTube channel, may not be aware that I'm a PK. That means I'm a preacher's kid. I know how difficult a pastor's life can be. It's an emotionally demanding job with high expectations, where everything said from the pulpit to the Sunday afternoon potluck, or as we like to say, the pot providence, to the coffee shops on a Monday morning, is carefully scrutinized. Ideally, pastors hold a special place of respect and trust with their congregants and used to garner some respect among the general population. Pastoring a flock necessitates an added expectation of responsibility to be truthful, to speak wisely, and to apply biblical principles consistent in all avenues of their and their family's life. In short, pastors lead by their words and by their actions. It's an extraordinarily difficult calling, one which has become even more difficult in the age of social media. The words of James 3 come to mind. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. In the age of social media, pastors, youth leaders, and professional theologians, like everybody else, we all have a chance to have our voices heard and our lives examined in ways like never before. Many of them have taken to social media outlets to be more accessible to their congregation, in some cases build a brand, allowing them to generate a following well beyond their local circle of influence. The latter necessitates that they share far more than just pictures of their kid's birthday, cats chasing, laser lights, and recent vacation adventures. They also share their opinions on a wide variety of social, political, and scientific controversies. This comes in the form of writing posts, sharing articles, commenting on articles, sharing memes. Although I arrived relatively late in the social media age, I've been actively engaged on Facebook and Twitter as part of my blogging efforts at Naturalis Historia. In particular, my Facebook and Twitter friends include over 500 pastors and theologians, mostly from theologically conservative backgrounds and, in particular, Reformed theology. Following so many Christian leaders, I have become distressed by the lack of discernment that many of them have displayed in their social media interactions. Increasingly, I have lost respect for many pastors and theologians that I either know personally, have heard speak, or whose books and articles I have read. Before encountering these individuals on social media, I believed them to be discerning exegetes and trusted sources of information as they applied the scripture in many social, political, and scientific issues of our day. But observing these same individuals on social media routinely sharing fake news that 2 minutes of internet searching and reading would debunk, engage in debates using fallacious argumentation, and painting uncharitable caricatures of social and political leaders is disheartening, to say the least. As a result, I've been unfriending and unfollowing social media friends that engage in such behavior. So what do I expect? I expect all Christians to care about truth and engage in basic practices of background reading and checking of facts before sharing their thoughts and links on social media. But given their roles and positions as leaders of people, I hold pastors and theologians to a higher standard, as does the Bible. They should show greater discernment. It's not enough to ask if a particular meme meets some minimum standard or that story headline sounds true, but they should be asking if what they're sharing is truly edifying. Again, Ephesians 4:29 comes to mind. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it might benefit those who listen. So many memes are meant to speak to a particular audience at the expense of another. Many are guaranteed to be offensive to someone. Yes, we can acknowledge that the truth can be offensive, and it may need to be. But in most cases, when we offend, it should be because we are defending the gospel. But what happens when you offend not because you present the truth, but because you're telling a lie, even if unwittingly? Surely, damage to the reputation of that individual is done. The qualifications of leaders being above reproach is not met. I know this to be true because my respect and that of others for particular pastors has been irreparably damaged by their use of social media. Pastors and theologians, if you can't show good judgment, if you aren't willing to do enough research to understand the nuances of a subject before stating your beliefs to others, how can I trust that you're doing the same with scriptures as you preach from the pulpit or teach in a seminary? I can't help but think of the qualifications of church overseers laid out by Paul in 1 Timothy 3:3-7. Here's a trustworthy saying: whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. Now the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him, and he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. If anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church? He must not be a recent convert, or he may become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil. He must also have a good reputation with outsiders, so that he will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap. I can't help but think of those words, especially above reproach, not quarrelsome, hospitable, and gentle. If you can't be faithful in the little things, like social media presence, can I trust that you're faithful in the big ones, preaching the word? For many of you, I have serious doubts, and that is especially troubling to me. Many of you sound very confident in the truth on all manner of social, political, and scientific matters, and are willing to tell others what they ought to believe on these issues, as if you're an authority. But from your comments and your post, I am not confident that there is any evidence from any source, including scriptures, that could convince you to change your mind. Your use of links advocating conspiracy theories from agenda-driven lobbyist resources with poorly researched articles, trite memes, and pithy but inaccurate sayings suggests you aren't even willing to spend a few hours to read books or source materials, the original research papers, affidavits, court documents, etc., to access the evidence for yourself. You rely on third parties with hidden or covert agendas to distill information and tell you what you ought to believe and what you want to hear in most cases. Again, the warning of 2 Timothy 4:3 comes to mind. For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but have itching ears that will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. This can be true of pastors as well as their congregation. I read your words on Facebook and blogs and YouTube, and have to wonder if what I hear you say from the pulpit is just as unreliable. I wonder if this lack of personal research and reflection on topics you address on your blogs and media posts are reflective of your approach to your meditation upon and interpretation of the Bible and how you will present it to others. Do you begin your sermon preparation each week knowing what you want to say from the pulpit and then devote your time to finding scriptures and commentaries that agree with your beliefs? Is there nothing in the scriptures that might change your mind? I've lost much confidence in pastors who do not seem to care about looking for truth, but only to seek to confirm their own fallible intuition. What is especially troubling to me, a believer in the advocate and benefits of seminary-trained pastors and teachers, is that denominations such as the one I grew up in, that require years of rigorous pastoral and theological training, have often not yielded pastors and theologians any better prepared to tackle social, scientific, or political issues than pastors who lead independent churches which require little or no theological training. Among Reformed Presbyterian denominations, there's a strong and I believe admirable tradition of stressing training in original biblical languages and methods of interpretation. In seminary, future pastors are exposed to many debates and difficult questions about doctrine and the application of those doctrines to the Christian life. They also should have been provided on a perspective on the history of the church. They, of all people, should realize how much work is involved to research and evaluate evidence from multiple perspectives before forming a conviction and applying that to practical issues in Christian life, and that such convictions ought to be held with humility, subject to change, with more understanding, maturity, and evidence. They, above all people, should realize that the topics such as immigration, gender identity, poverty, medical ethics, climate change, and so forth don't have solutions that fit into the space of a meme, a tweet, or a Facebook comment. Rather, they're multivariate problems that require a thoughtful and measured response, just like when discussing positions on baptism, eschatology, apologetic methods, pneumatology, liturgical practices, and so forth. There's no simple solution to engaging to discourse in the modern era, but the general rule that one should avoid being or appearing to be a fool should be obvious advice which many pastors have apparently not taken to heart. For many, it's not that they think that their lack of knowledge is no barrier to qualifications to speak on topic, but they seem to think that their faith and biblical training is a substitute for knowledge on any topic because they have the truth. They see verses like, "If God is for us, who can stand against us?" and assume that anything they say on a topic automatically has the force of God's might standing behind it. Most pastors would not regularly quote from a supermarket tabloid. Yet I follow several that routinely share articles from online resources that are no more reliable than those tabloids. They just happen to espouse views that this pastor finds agreeable. They just don't realize how unreliable their sources are. This may be because they have not taken the time to research it, or they don't have discernment to recognize when they're being manipulated. I really hope that I'm addressing a minority of pastors. Unfortunately, they're the vocal minority, since they inhabit the social media space and are willing to share their thoughts on everything. There are some thoughtful theologians and pastors whose wisdom from the pulpit is reflected in their careful and introspective comments on Facebook, blog posts, and tweets. Most pastors and theologians don't have a social media presence, and if they have accounts, don't venture into making commentary on politics and science and social issues. Many of them probably have wisdom to share, but recognize the minefield that social media can be and stay away. Generally, I think this cautious approach to social media is wise. But part of me really wishes that some of the competent but silent consumers of social media would make a greater effort to speak out when and where they are competent to do so. Living in the age of social media has caused me to have a far greater appreciation for my father, a pastor of more than 50 years. He has been a model of careful and thoughtful dialogue in person and in limited interactions on social media. He does not allow himself to be dragged into internet banter, nor does he share sarcastic or insensitive memes that are today's version of bully rants in the schoolyard. He understands that there are multiple and intertwined sides of most issues that are difficult to appreciate in a single meme or a 160-character tweet. He doesn't treat those for whom he disagrees as an enemy to be vanquished, or in today's vernacular, scum or animals. Likewise, I've really come to appreciate my current pastor's self-control on social media. The words of James 1:19 come to mind here. "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." And this represents his way very well. He could readily have a large following, but he is focused on building personal relationships in the local church. Having a virtual following is not his thing. I'm not suggesting that pastors can't have an effective witness on social media, but it takes substantial patience, time, and wisdom to cultivate respect on such a platform. Personally, I infrequently comment on politics and other social issues on social media. I'm not without opinions on these matters, but I prefer to develop personal face-to-face relationships within which to engage on those types of debates. Occasionally, I'll speak out on topics for which I have researched and thus can provide a meaningful contribution. Even on topics in which I do have consider myself an expert on some areas, I don't feel that memes and simple forms of communication provide any tangible long-term value, and therefore avoid their use. On the occasions that I do share articles and quotes, I make a real effort to inspect the source and determine if I should trust them and whether I wish to be affiliated with them. For my own writing, I stick to areas where I have expertise and thus can judge the quality of other work. This doesn't provide 100% assurance that I'm right, but it's a good hedge against falling into serious error. Also, I don't anticipate that my expertise will necessarily cause readers to accept my views, but at least I won't be responsible for spreading false facts, gross exaggerations, or serve somebody else's interests. Many of you will recognize that I do write, and I share material that expresses strong and sometimes unpopular viewpoints. Most notably, I've written regularly and strongly about what I've concluded about the abuses of Scripture and science of Ken Ham and colleagues. However, despite expressing strong opinions, I don't believe I've ever posted a meme poking fun at Ken Ham. I've also made a point not to like or promote any Facebook or Twitter post that puts Ken Ham or other creationist brothers in a position that denigrates them as people and makes caricatures of them. Mocking, name-calling, and so forth, it's inappropriate, does nothing to foster understanding and fruitful dialogue. It would greatly harm my witness And my periodic lack of self-control in this area is truly embarrassing to me. Engaging in profitable, honest dialogue is hard, but it's necessary work, especially for those who've been called to preach the gospel. I know it's a lot to ask, but I, along with the Apostle Paul, ask it anyway. Christian leaders on social media, you need to take the truth seriously. You cannot simply assume because you know the truth of the gospel that everything you believe and consequently everything you say is also true. Am I guilty of the errors for which I'm talking about? Well, of course I am. I know I've held tenuous positions too strongly in the past, and I regret many things that I have said on social media. I'm going to redouble my efforts to do better. But how much more important is it for those with greater positions of authority to lead by example? By the grace of God, we can all do better. For all those out there that are watching and listening, I appreciate your time. I hope this message has been edifying. Let me know in the comment section to this video. I'll read those comments, and I plan on making a follow-up video in which I respond to questions and comments. Maybe flesh some of these ideas out a little bit more and give a little bit more personal perspective. If you think that this is important, that this is an important message, please like, share, and comment. Blessings and peace to all of you this day.